Charlotte Kensington's worn Ford sedan groaned along the deserted highway at 2 a.m. Her hands ached from a double shift, her mind circling the stack of medical bills waiting at home. She'd missed 3 of Derek's texts, and each unanswered message meant his mood would darken further. Then she saw the flames. The luxury sedan had punched through the guardrail, smoke pouring from its crumpled hood. Every exhausted muscle in Charlotte's body screamed to keep driving, to get home before Derek's anger escalated. But her EMT training wouldn't let her. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She sprinted toward the wreckage. Inside, a man slumped unconscious against deployed airbags, blood trickling from his temple. The acrid smell of leaking fuel sent Charlotte's pulse racing. She wrenched open the jammed door, smoke searing her lungs as she dragged the man's dead weight onto the highway shoulder. No pulse. Her hands moved automatically through chest compressions, counting rhythms, breathing life into a stranger's lungs. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Again. Again. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused but alive, locking onto hers with confused recognition. Sirens wailed in the distance. Charlotte's phone buzzed violently. Derek. Again. Panic overrode protocol. She pressed her monogrammed scarf into the man's hand and ran for her car, disappearing into darkness before the ambulance arrived. She didn't know she'd just saved billionaire CEO Alexander Knight, her husband's former best friend and sworn enemy. When Charlotte slipped through her apartment door 20 minutes late, Derek was waiting in the shadows, his cold silence more terrifying than shouting. 3 days later, Alexander Knight woke in a private hospital room with fractured ribs and a singular obsession: finding his angel of mercy. The crash wasn't an accident, James Rivera, his head of security, said grimly. Brake lines were professionally cut. Alexander barely registered the attempted murder. All he could see was her face in that moment between death and life, backlit by flames. Find her. The monogrammed scarf, CK, and security footage of a fleeing EMT gave James his trail. Within hours, he'd tracked her through hospital databases to City General, where Charlotte Kensington worked part-time between caring for her dying mother and maintaining her crumbling marriage. Alexander watched from across the parking lot as Charlotte emerged from her shift, exhaustion etched into every movement. Then a BMW pulled up. A man stepped out, all public charm and private criticism, his hand too tight on Charlotte's elbow as he steered her toward the passenger seat. Derek Kensington, Alexander's former college roommate. The man who'd betrayed their partnership, embezzled funds, and disappeared 5 years ago with threats of revenge. His savior was married to his enemy. James caught Alexander's expression. Boss, whatever you're thinking. She doesn't know, Alexander interrupted, watching Charlotte flinch away from Derek's touch. She has no idea who he really is, or what he's capable of. The question that haunted Alexander as they drove away: was Charlotte Derek's accomplice or his victim? Charlotte's favorite coffee shop was a cramped corner establishment that smelled of burned beans and honest work. She was stirring her 3rd cup when Alexander Knight slid into the opposite chair. I wanted to thank you properly. He placed her father's monogrammed scarf on the scarred table between them. You saved my life. Charlotte's cup rattled against the saucer. I didn't know it was you. Which is exactly why your heroism means something. Alexander's voice was warm, genuine. Please, let me help you. Your mother's medical expenses, a better position at Knight Industries, anything. I don't want your money. Charlotte's pride flared hot and defensive. I didn't pull you out for a reward. I know, but you deserve better than. Alexander hesitated, treading carefully. I know, Derek. We have history. Charlotte's expression shuddered immediately. My husband is a good man who's been through hard times. Because of you, actually. Charlotte, he told me how you destroyed his career. She stood abruptly. This is just guilt trying to buy absolution. Alexander rose too, frustration breaking through his careful control. You're exhausted, isolated, and that bruise on your wrist didn't come from any accident. Charlotte yanked her sleeve down, face flushing. You don't know anything about my life. Then tell me I'm wrong. She couldn't. Instead, she walked out, leaving Alexander with certainty crystallizing in his gut. Derek wasn't just embezzling from his company. He was destroying the woman who'd saved Alexander's life. James Rivera spread financial documents across Alexander's desk like evidence of murder. 2 years of embezzlement through shell companies. Derek's siphoned over $3 million, mostly to cover gambling debts. Across town, Detective Marcus Hall studied parking garage footage with growing certainty. That's Derek Kensington accessing your vehicle 12 hours before the crash. Motive, means, opportunity. In a hospital records room, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stared at her best friend's medical file with mounting horror. 5 years of accidents. Broken wrist from slipping on ice. Bruised ribs from falling downstairs. A concussion from tripping over a rug. How had she missed the pattern? Sarah cornered Charlotte in the hospital break room. These injuries aren't accidents. Talk to me about Derek. Charlotte's face went blank, walls slamming down. He's never hit me. That's not what I asked. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I'm fine, Sarah. Stop trying to fix problems that don't exist. Charlotte grabbed her coat and left, severing their friendship to protect a lie she was terrified to examine. Meanwhile, James delivered his bombshell. Derek was in your parking garage the night before the crash. Security footage confirms it. Alexander stared at the frozen image of Derek crouched beside his car's wheel well. His former friend. Charlotte's husband. A man capable of murder. We go to the police, Alexander decided. And Charlotte. Alexander's jaw tightened. We save her whether she wants saving or not. Alexander appeared at Charlotte's door while Derek was out, arms full of damning evidence. I need you to see the truth about your husband. Charlotte let him in with reluctant wariness. The documents told a story she couldn't deny. Embezzlement, gambling debts, shell companies bearing Derek's digital fingerprints. Their shared history at Knight Industries. Derek's termination for endangering workers. He caused the crash, Alexander said quietly. He tried to kill me. No. Charlotte's voice cracked. You're lying because you want. You? Yes. Alexander's honesty was brutal. But that doesn't make the evidence false. Charlotte ordered him out. But after he left, she sat alone with the truth bleeding through her denial. When Derek returned, he read her devastation instantly. Alexander came here, didn't he? Derek's voice was silk over steel. Showed you his fabricated evidence? He's obsessed with you, Charlotte. I've seen how he looks at you. This is revenge for me leaving his company and getting the girl he wanted. Charlotte desperately wanted to believe him. Derek pulled her close, playing the wounded victim with practiced precision. Let me make you some tea. You need to rest after such an upsetting day. The drugged tea tasted bitter, but Charlotte drank it anyway, choosing the comfortable lie over the terrible truth. As consciousness slipped away, Derek searched her phone with cold efficiency. Sarah's messages condemned him. Leave him. You deserve better. He's abusing you. Derek's mask finally shattered in the privacy of Charlotte's unconsciousness. He made a phone call, voice flat with deadly purpose. I need to accelerate the timeline. Charlotte woke with cotton in her head and gaps in her memory. The previous night felt distant, dreamlike, wrong. She needed clarity, and there was only one person who'd always given it to her. Her mother looked smaller each visit, cancer eating away at everything except her sharp mind. Charlotte collapsed into the chair beside the hospice bed and confessed everything. The rescue, Alexander's accusations, Derek's counter-narrative, the evidence she couldn't ignore, the doubts consuming her. Sweetheart, Mrs. Evelyn Hartley's voice was paper-thin but steady. You've known for years that Derek wasn't who you thought he was. You just didn't want to see it. Mom, I should have said something sooner. But I was afraid. Afraid you'd choose him over me. Afraid of being a burden you couldn't afford to keep. Tears slid down her weathered cheeks. I've watched him dim your light for 5 years. I've been terrified of him. And I stayed silent because you needed his income for my treatment. The truth landed like a physical blow. Charlotte's hands shook as she held her mother's frail fingers. Don't stay for me, her mother whispered. I didn't raise you to accept a cage. Meanwhile, Alexander sat in a sterile hospital examination room, submitting to follow-up tests on his crash injuries. The doctor noted healing ribs but concerning signs of PTSD, nightmares, hypervigilance, intrusive memories of impact, and flames. Mr. Knight. A familiar voice made him turn. Elena Volkov stood in the doorway, designer dress and calculated concern. His ex-fiancée, who'd left 3 years ago because he chose business over people, now touched his arm with practiced intimacy. I heard about your accident. I had to see you. She moved closer, her hand finding his cheek. We were good together, Alexander. And now that you've had this brush with death, maybe you finally understand what matters. Elena, we're done. That hasn't changed, hasn't it? She smiled, confident in her beauty and his supposed vulnerability. Through the window, Charlotte froze. She'd come to find Sarah, to apologize for pushing her away. Instead, she saw Alexander with a stunning woman touching him intimately, him not pulling away, the tableau of resumed romance. Derek's words echoed in her mind. He's a player who pursues married women for sport. Charlotte turned and fled before Sarah could spot her, her fragile hope crumbling. She'd been a fool to think a billionaire's interest in her was genuine. She was just the convenient damsel in his revenge plot against Derek. She returned home more confused than ever, not knowing Derek was tracking every movement on her phone, watching her doubt Alexander, seeing his manipulation succeed. That night, Derek held her with false tenderness. I told you he'd show his true colors. Men like Alexander Knight collect women like trophies. Charlotte said nothing, but something inside her, some small, fierce part that had survived 5 years of gaslighting, whispered that nothing about this felt right. Detective Marcus Hall laid the evidence before his lieutenant like a prosecutor presenting a murder weapon. Derek Kensington. Embezzlement, attempted murder, fraud. The case is airtight. James Rivera had provided the financial trail. The parking garage footage was damning. Alexander's testimony was credible. The warrant was signed within hours. But when Hall and his team arrived at the Kensington apartment with James in tow, they found only abandoned coffee cups and Charlotte's work uniform hanging in the closet. The apartment felt hurriedly emptied, drawers left open, closet doors ajar. He knew we were coming, Hall said grimly. Across town, Derek guided Charlotte into a remote cabin with rotting boards and peeling paint. We need time away from the stress. Just us, reconnecting like we used to. Charlotte's unease had blossomed into full-blown dread, but years of conditioning made her nod and smile. The cabin was isolated, no neighbors for miles, cell service spotty at best. Derek immediately took her phone, so we can focus on each other without distractions. That first night, Derek drank heavily and confessed to the embezzlement between tears and self-pity. I had to borrow money. Alexander destroyed my career, left us with nothing. I was trying to build us a future. Derek, you need to turn yourself in. Face the consequences, and his hand slammed the table, making her flinch. The mask cracked, revealing something cold and reptilian beneath. Turn myself in. His laugh was bitter. After everything I've done to protect us? I cut those brake lines, Charlotte. I tried to kill him, and you ruined it by saving his life. The room tilted. Charlotte's EMT training kicked in, keeping her voice steady despite terror flooding her veins. You're upset. Let's talk about this when you're sober. I'm seeing clearly for the first time. Derek moved closer, and Charlotte saw the gun tucked into his waistband. You're going to help me fix this, or you're going to disappear with me. Either way, you're not leaving. At Knight Industries, Alexander's phone went straight to voicemail for the third time. Charlotte's not answering. Something's wrong. James was already pulling up phone records. Last ping was 2 hours ago, heading north toward the mountains. Then nothing. Sarah burst into Alexander's office, face pale. Charlotte mentioned Derek's uncle had a cabin upstate. First anniversary trip. She hated it, said it felt like the end of the world. Detective Hall coordinated with state police while James pulled satellite imagery. The cabin was a small square in vast wilderness, accessed by a single dirt road. We move now, Alexander said, already grabbing his coat. Mr. Knight, this is police business. That's the woman who saved my life trapped with a man who tried to kill me. I'm going. Hall saw the determination in Alexander's eyes and knew arguing was pointless. Then you follow our lead and stay back until we secure the scene. The convoy of police vehicles and Alexander's SUV headed north as storm clouds gathered overhead, racing against Derek's deteriorating sanity and the darkness closing in. Charlotte had learned to read Derek's moods the way prey reads predators. Right now, he was circling toward violence, drinking straight from a whiskey bottle while pacing the cabin's small living room. We could disappear, she said carefully, keeping her voice soothing. Mexico, maybe. Start over where no one knows us. Derek's laugh was harsh. You think I'm stupid? You'd run the first chance you got. His phone rang, and Charlotte watched his face drain of color. The loan shark. She caught fragments of the conversation. Final warning. They'll find pieces of you. 1 week. When Derek hung up, his hands were shaking. He drained the whiskey bottle and looked at Charlotte with something that made her blood freeze. This is your fault. If you hadn't saved him, if you'd just driven past like a normal person, he grabbed rope from his bag. I can't trust you not to leave. Charlotte fought as he dragged her to a bedroom chair, but Derek was stronger and desperate. The rope bit into her wrists as he tied her, each knot a testament to how far he'd fallen. Derek, please. Shut up. He pressed the gun to her temple, and Charlotte went rigid. Alexander Knight took everything from me. My company, my future, my wife's loyalty. Well, if I can't have my life back, neither can he. He made a call on speakerphone. Alexander's voice came through, tight, with controlled panic. Derek, hello, old friend. I have something of yours. Well, technically she's mine, but you seem to have grown attached. Derek's voice was poison-sweet. Come to the cabin. Alone. Or I'll finish what Charlotte started and make sure you never wake up by putting a bullet in her brain. Charlotte's heart hammered as she heard Alexander's response. Don't hurt her. I'm coming. No. Charlotte screamed. It's a trap. He'll kill you both. Derek backhanded her, and the phone disconnected. In his SUV racing up the mountain, Alexander gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. James drove while Detective Hall coordinated tactical teams from the passenger seat. He wants you alone, Hall said. That's not happening. Then we make him think I'm alone. Alexander's voice was steel. I'll approach first. You hold back until you hear my signal or gunfire. Charlotte's life is the priority. The storm broke as they approached the cabin's location, rain turning dirt roads to mud. Lightning split the sky, and Alexander thought of another storm. Another night when he'd been too late to save his sister from a preventable death. Not this time. Not Charlotte. At the cabin, Charlotte worked her restraints with methodical precision. Derek sat drinking in the next room, muttering to himself. The rope burned her wrists, but EMT training had taught her about knots and pressure points. She heard a vehicle approach and Derek's sudden alertness. He came. The fool actually came. Derek checked his gun and grabbed Charlotte by her hair, dragging her to her feet. Let's give your hero a proper welcome. Charlotte's hands were nearly free, hidden behind her back. She met Derek's eyes and saw madness staring back. Whatever happened next, she knew one truth with absolute certainty. Only one of them was walking out of this cabin alive. Alexander stepped from the SUV into driving rain, hands visible and empty. The cabin's windows glowed with yellow light, and he could see shadows moving inside. Every instinct screamed trap, but Charlotte was in there, and that made the choice simple. James's voice crackled through the nearly invisible earpiece. Tactical is in position. Say the word. Hold. Alexander approached the cabin door, which swung open before he could knock. Derek stood with a gun pressed to Charlotte's temple. Her wrists showed rope burns, her face bruised, but her eyes were fierce and alert, warning him. Come in, Alexander. Slowly, Alexander entered, cataloging details with trained observation. Charlotte's hands behind her back, working at something. Derek's unsteady stance, reeking of alcohol. The gun's safety off. One shot, and she'd be gone. You wanted to talk, Alexander said calmly. So talk. Talk. Derek laughed, the sound brittle. You destroyed my life. Took my company, my reputation, my future. You left me with nothing. You stole from the company. Endangered workers by cutting safety corners. You did that, Derek. Not me. Because I was never good enough for you. Derek's mask shattered completely. Golden boy Alexander Knight, genius CEO, everyone's hero. While I was the sidekick, the expendable friend. You even tried to steal my wife. I tried to save her from you. By offering her money? A job? Your bet. Derek's gun hand shook. She's mine. Mine to keep or destroy. Alexander saw Charlotte's fingers move, the rope sliding free behind her back. He needed to keep Derek talking, give her the opening she was creating. You're right, Alexander said, and the admission shocked them both. I should have tried to help you 5 years ago instead of just cutting you out. I failed you as a friend. The unexpected vulnerability threw Derek off balance. His gun lowered fractionally as confusion crossed his face. It was enough. Charlotte exploded into motion, tackling Derek with her full body weight. The gun discharged, the shot wild, shattering a window. Alexander rushed forward as Charlotte and Derek crashed to the floor, wrestling for the weapon. The door burst open. James and tactical team flooded in with shouted commands. Derek bucked Charlotte off, swinging the gun toward Alexander with desperate hatred. James fired first, the taser dropping Derek in convulsing collapse. Officers swarmed Derek, cuffing him while he screamed about betrayal and injustice. Charlotte sat on the floor, shaking with adrenaline, staring at her freed hands as if they belonged to someone else. Alexander knelt beside her, careful not to crowd her. "Charlotte, you're safe. It's over." She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much, survived too much. Then she collapsed forward into his arms, and he held her as the storm raged overhead and Derek was dragged into the rain, still screaming. Detective Hall took statements while EMTs examined Charlotte's injuries. Rope burns, bruising, dehydration, shock, but alive. Gloriously, fiercely alive. "I need to take her to the hospital," the paramedic said. Charlotte shook her head. "Not until he's gone. I need to see him gone." So Alexander held her as they loaded Derek into a police cruiser, his former friend reduced to a pathetic figure ranting behind reinforced glass. Charlotte watched until the taillights disappeared into the storm. Only then did she let Alexander help her to her feet. Only then did she whisper, "Thank you for coming. I knew you would." "Always," Alexander said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. 3 months later, spring arrived in New York with the tentative promise of renewal. Derek sat in a county jail awaiting trial, his lawyers unable to overcome the mountain of evidence. Embezzlement, attempted murder, kidnapping, assault. The charges stacked like a house of cards, and this time, Derek Kensington had no escape. Charlotte signed the divorce papers in her therapist's office, her hands steady. The woman staring back from the mirror was different from the exhausted EMT who'd pulled a stranger from a burning car. This woman had boundaries. This woman knew her worth. Her mother was in remission, the cancer retreating before aggressive treatment funded by victims' compensation. And, though Charlotte didn't know it, quietly supplemented by Alexander through anonymous channels. Mrs. Evelyn Hartley was well enough to visit Charlotte's new apartment, modest but hers, filled with light and the absence of fear. "You're glowing," her mother said, squeezing her hand. Charlotte had reconnected with Sarah, their friendship deepening through honesty about the abuse Charlotte had endured. Sarah had apologized for not pushing harder. Charlotte had apologized for shutting her out. They were healing together. Alexander, meanwhile, had been doing his own work. Therapy for PTSD, processing his sister's death, learning that saving someone once didn't make them his responsibility, but choosing to stay did. He'd given Charlotte space, not wanting to be another man who pressured her, who made decisions for her. But he thought about her every day. On a Wednesday morning, Charlotte walked into Knight Industries with her heart hammering. The receptionist directed her to the executive floor, where Alexander's assistant looked surprised but pleased. "Miss Kensington, he's in his office." Charlotte knocked once and entered before courage could fail her. Alexander stood from behind his desk, surprise and hope warring across his features. "Charlotte," she placed his business card, the one he'd given her months ago, on his desk. "I needed time to figure out who I was outside of being Derek's wife. Outside of being a victim. You gave me that space, and I'm grateful. You don't need to thank me. I'm not here to thank you." Charlotte's voice was steady, a woman who'd found herself in the wreckage. "I'm here to ask if you'd like to have coffee. Not as the CEO and the EMT. Not as the man I saved or the man who helped save me. Just as Alexander and Charlotte. Two people who met in fire and survived." Alexander's smile was sunrise breaking through clouds. "I'd like that very much." They returned to the coffee shop where everything had begun, but this time there was no desperation, no life or death stakes. Just genuine conversation about their mothers, their work, their dreams for the future. The attraction remained, but grounded now in mutual respect and hard-won understanding. "I spent 5 years believing I wasn't enough," Charlotte said. "That I needed someone to complete me. Turns out I just needed to remember I was whole all along." "You saved my life twice," Alexander replied. "Once on that highway, and once by showing me that true strength isn't about rescuing people. It's about standing beside them while they save themselves." They walked out into the New York spring, the city humming with possibility. At the crosswalk, Charlotte's hand, ringless now, unmarked except for fading scars that told stories of survival, reached for Alexander's. Not being led, not being saved, just two people who'd found each other in the wreckage, choosing to rebuild together. The light turned green, and they crossed the street as equals, walking toward a future they'd write together, one choice at a time. Up next, we have two more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.